Hello, my name is Andriy. Welcome to the program. Once dubbed as the breadbasket of Europe, Ukraine still has a huge potential in the agricultural sector. But in order to reach this potential, the country still has a long way to go. What are the challenges of Ukraine's agri-food sector in the years to come? Joining us in the studio for an overview on this matter is Andriy Vadaturskyy, member of the Ukrainian Parliament. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
So Ukraine does have this potential to be a major player in agricultural world market. But what are the main obstacles, according to you?
Well, basically, thank you for the question, but already for 25 years, if not more, people are still talking about the potentials. However, the market and the structure of agricultural business has changed substantially since the collapse of Soviet Union. For example, even 15, 17 years ago, Ukraine was importing some commodities, for example, like corn. Today, Ukraine is number 2 or number 3 exporter of corn in the world. So the progress is still obvious. However, I have seen many studies of professionals who are declaring that Ukraine has reached maybe 50% of the potential, of the capacity, and still can double the production of agricultural commodities. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, the efficiency. And the World Bank study shows that we have like 50% of the efficiency on the land compared to the efficiency of the production in the European Union or United States. So what to do? And of course, the obvious question is, what is the situation with the land? Because the Parliament, since 2001, is providing the moratorium on the land. So it's quite a strange structure. So we have decided to have the property rights, to protect the property rights, the market economy, and on one hand, but on the other hand, we prohibited to trade land, to sell and to buy, of course. And even worse is that every year we do not give a clear signal neither to the landowners, nor to the producers, nor to the government what to do and what is the prospects, whether we are going to have the market land for the market or we are going simply to have the rent agreement.
Exactly, and it brings me to my next question, which is this controversial land reform. So in between, like the possibility to sell to investors and the actual situation, which is leasing for 7 years, if I'm not wrong. So
that's the minimum requirement.
Yeah, that's the minimum.
So basically, you can rent until up to 7 years, right? So, but I can explain you the structure and who is against and who is in favor of it. So there are 3 players. One player is the landowner, and that's a person who grown in the village and either inherited or received from the state a piece of land, 2 or 20 hectares, or maybe the family has 100 hectares. So basically, they are in favor of having the right to sell, because we are still talking about not forcing them to sell, but having the right to sell.
The possibility of
the possibility. Yeah. So there is no question to force to sell or to force to buy, right? It's simply to give the right. And we are fighting for that. And more and more people understand that. On the other hand, there are producers who working on the land. And it's a hard work. And of course, they are counting money as a business. And for them, it's very interesting to pay as low cost as possible, including the rent fees. So they would like to rent land as low as possible, and it's obvious, right? So they are not interested to have the market for the land, because immediately the leasing fees or rent fees
and the prices will go up. Yeah,
exactly. So that is why they don't have any benefit from it. So that is why it's a task for the government to provide some incentives. Together with, for example, we have been talking to IMF, International Monetary Fund, to provide some liquidity, some cash, some cheap credit lines to be able for the farmers easily to buy this land, to receive the credit line and to buy not only the land but also the equipment to work on this land. And that is why it should stimulate the Ukrainian farmers a priori to stop fighting against this reform and to benefit. Because the thing is that if we capitalize the business, everybody will benefit. Ukrainian economy will benefit, people will receive a higher rent fees for the land, the farmers will benefit because they will have a business to sell, for example, and better tools, so the efficiency we will achieve. And on the other hand, the government is not interested to provide the market for the land because it's easier for them to control. Because the government today controls, I think, around 10 million hectares, so it's in the shadow. And the bureaucrats all the way up or down, they receive cash for the land. And we are talking about $1.5 billion every year that the authorities, state authorities receiving cash. And that is why they are very reluctant to give up the control. And for example, there is a land that belongs to the military, the land that belongs to the universities, to the academy, to land, for example, that one of the biggest landowners is the Academy for Agrarian Academy, that they have 400,000 hectares. It's a huge amount of money that, and they are not they are prohibited to lease the land, and they are not using it. So basically, they are in the illegally the land and receive cash. Of course, there will be many people, institutions who are going to simply explain to the farmers, scare them, explain different stories that do not sell because you will be cheated,
and that's the question here, because maybe those farmers hear that argument, which is a fair argument. It happened in France, it happened in other countries, that maybe selling that land might sweep little farmers like to the benefit of big corporation. It's a fair argument that somehow, with a lot of money you can buy a lot of land, and then you have big corporation taking one big piece of land.
That's one of the myths I think that exist in Ukraine as well. Why? But on the other hand, we say that we have a moratorium from 2001. So for 16 years we have a moratorium. But since then, we have created the big farmers, the big landowners that have from 100,000 hectares up to 600,000 hectares. So it's because of the moratorium we have created those agro-holdings.
So it exists already.
So it exists already. And for them to buy this land will be very difficult, because if you compare, let's say, the market price for the land, it costs at least $1,000 per hectare. So to attract $600 million, for example, to buy this land, it's a task. It's a challenge. So I think they're in opposite. They're against that. And what is the benefit? So this actually reform is in favor of the small to medium farmers, because they can buy up to 1,000 up to 5,000 hectares, and it's possible. It's easy to control for the banks. It's easy in terms of the risk assessments. So I think the market will be mainly for that. And the good thing is that every year in the parliament we have more and more people who understand the challenges, and they understand the benefit of the market, land market. And even this year, even if we extend the moratorium for 1 more year, but 64 people voted against that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And basically,
result, yeah.
compared to the last year, I think 4 or 5 only.
So it's slowly decreasing.
So it's increasing the number of people who in favor of the land market.
So that's for the land market, but for the production itself, if Ukraine takes part in 1 day, into the European and have a complete European membership and goes into the European single market, it will have to face a restraint of quota that every country in Europe is facing. Is it possible to have, on one side, economic growth thanks to agriculture and face the quotas that Europe will have to put on Ukraine?
I think today we already have a quota, and we had a quota 5-10 years ago because European Union is protecting their own market. But with integration, with European direction towards Europe, I think the market is opening the gate. So we will stop talking about the quotas. It will be free access. Maybe there are some quotas will be for the production, but it's a different story, like for meat production or chicken or meat or dairy products, yes, but that's a different story. And I think the challenge will be for the Ukrainians is to achieve the quality requirements, because today there is no harmonization of the qualities. And as soon as we meet the quality standards, safety, food safety standards, then we will be able to show the products and deliver the products to one of the biggest markets in the world.
So, and the other question would be, for this modernization and for this food safety and all the things, farmers and, well, they need infrastructure. How to finance them if there is still this moratorium on land market?
Yeah, basically, I think the production in Ukraine has been growing with faster and with higher speed than developments in infrastructure. It's what I often say, that we already learned how to produce, but we still lacking the investments in infrastructures. The roads, basically, Ukrainian government has been financing for like 15-20% of the needs, and if you do it for 10 years, basically you will lose all the roads, because the life expectancy is 7-10 years. So, and that is why we have accepted and voted for a good law, which will start working on the 1st of January, that we have created the road funds. And basically we all pay for the roads, and those money will be accumulated. So I think around 1 billion euros we will receive to build the roads, and compared to much 10 times less before. So we will start building the roads. And second issue is that we are considering the drafts of the law for the concessions. So basically attracting the investments to have a private roads with tolling, so it's kind of a business, but which will provide a better service. So it's one direction. Second direction is the ports investments, because we still have the most expensive ports in the world. And it's a very unique structure, because the government is making money on the ports instead of providing the services, because in the European Union, for example, it's a cost approach. So if you have a cost in the port $1, so the port fees are exactly $1. In Ukraine, we have a cost of $1, but the port fees are around $5-6. And that is why we have another good studies from the World Bank saying that decreasing the cost by 60% will bring the growth, GDP growth, additional 1% per year. So stimulating the production, stimulating the processing in the economy of Ukraine. Yeah. Because our product will become more efficient, more competitive, and that will stimulate the production inside of Ukraine.
Well, and that's all we hope. Thank you for joining us in the studio. It was a pleasure to have you for this interview.
Thank you for the invitation.
That was Andriy Vadaturskyy, member of the Ukrainian Parliament on UATV. Thank you for watching the program. Stay tuned for the rest.